Okay, we're going to talk about topicality today. Here's the situation. What I'm hearing on the radio are a bunch of people who don't understand the idea behind topicality, where it came from, why it's important, and how it really works. What I'm hearing are a lot of people who go on the air, find an interesting story, and what do we used to call those? Human interest. Do a human interest story, we were told. And while they're interesting, they're not necessarily topical, and I want to make sure that we understand the two different things, that there's human interest, meaning that's a cute, clever NPR kind of story. And then there's topicality, and that's something that people are feeling about at this time. Not talking about, but feeling about. That's a really important distinction when you're doing topicality behind the microphone, whether it be a podcast or a video blog like this one, or behind the microphone on a radio. You need to know, on a radio station, you need to know the difference between topicality and human interest and how they both work. So today we're just going to talk about topicality. Human interest will be some other video, some other time. Which brings me to my focal point today, Ben Franklin. And you're saying to yourself, maybe, okay, how does that become topical? How do I learn from Ben Franklin? Well, what you need to know about Ben Franklin is that he was extremely dynamic. Did you know he had one of the first newspapers in the United States? It's true. He was with his brother as an apprentice on one of the first newspapers in the country. And in fact, Ben wanted to write for that newspaper as an apprentice and write into the letters to the editor. And his brother said, absolutely not. You will not do that. So Ben Franklin started writing to that newspaper as Mrs. Silence Dogood. So under the pen name of a woman, he would write about fashion, he would write about marriage, he would write about religion, he wrote about women's rights, things that people were feeling about at that time. And in fact, one time his brother was thrown in jail for actually speaking out against the governor of Pennsylvania. And he wrote, as Mrs. Dogood, without freedom of thought, there can be no such thing as wisdom and no such thing as public liberty without freedom of speech. Now, a lot of people will quote that as Ben Franklin. And it was Ben Franklin, but it was written under the pen name of Mrs. Silence Dogood. So the deal here is that he was writing topicality. He was writing topical. And the important thing about that is that that's what people were feeling at that time. There were no rules. There was no Hollywood. There were no tabloids. There was no internet. He just had to go, what are people thinking about and how are they feeling about it right now? He discovered the difference between reporting, which is a news organization, and emoting, which is how do you feel? So the important thing to know about topical is to know who your listener is. And you really need to spend some time with that. What is your listener? Who is your listener? What do they feel? What's their lot in life? And pretty soon you can come up with that list of what's topical for them, what's on their mind and on their heart at the same time. So, you know, the sports team going to the Super Bowl, that's kind of emotion, so it's topical. But the fact that Congress met yesterday, that's just news reporting. There's a slight difference there, all right? So how do you get topicality in your show or behind your mic or your podcast or your video cast or whatever you're doing? How do you do that? Well, first and foremost, in that moment, you kind of need to figure out what is my listener feeling about right now? Feeling about, not talking about, feeling about. And then you have some guidelines for what you can do. Okay, that's topical. Being topical is important because you're striking the chord of the emotion that's happening right now. What's on the top of their heart, not on the top of their mind. So the stories that you have right now, let's see. You're talking about a skate night. It's just not skate night. It's the summer activities because it's summer right now. So that's gets it a little more topical. Red Cross, they become the hurricane heroes maybe. Let's see. How about winning a big contest so we can get out of the weather. Winning a big contest. Economic struggles are a big deal right now. So you can twist that into know you're struggling, which is hitting the topicality of what they're doing, and then moving it off into what you have to talk about. But trying to change it into what's topical on their heart is really important. And yes, there's things that people are talking about that are top of mind, That's what they're saying, top of mind. But make sure you include the heart in that, and you'll be way, way further down the road. So Ben Franklin, can we make this story about Ben Franklin topical? I don't know. Let me see. Ben Franklin, a politician who lied about his identity, but yet is the most revered politician in our country. Is that topical? Not sure. Ben Franklin, one of the all-time flip-floppers of all time, really, seriously. He dealt in slavery and then came out as one of the most fervent abolitionists. Yes, it's true. Oh, what about this one? Let's not forget. You could actually say this, unless your audience would find it offensive, and that is that Ben Franklin was one of the first people in this country to self-identify as a woman. Now, that's topical.